So thank you, Helen, for the opportunity to speak tonight. And thank you all for coming. Can I
Move that for a
get in
minute.
the way? Is it lower?
No, but we can move it, Chris. Just move it out of the way. Yeah. Just move it out of the way.
I just like to be able to see people.
Yeah.
It's going to be a problem if I can.
Yeah.
There we go. So, thank you for the opportunity tonight. About 6 weeks ago, so I am very new to this fight, I first became aware of the protests against draft policy 5.45. When I became aware of how large this issue had become, I created a Facebook page and also a Facebook group and called them both the Burnaby Parents Gay Straight Alliance. Within the day, the group grew to more than 75 members, and currently there are about 130 people in the group. However, let me be clear that I don't speak for any other parents who've joined the Facebook group. I speak for myself. I'm a parent of a child in the Burnaby schools. I speak as a Canadian-born child of immigrants. I speak as a scientist, and I speak as a person of faith. And I support this policy 5.45 and its commitment to making our schools safer. When I read the letters to the editor on this topic, what strikes me is that there is a lot of fear in our community. Although I don't entirely understand the fear, I do want to honor those feelings. Some of that fear seems to be fear of the unknown. What will it mean to us to have this policy in our schools? How do children become homosexual? Will learning about homosexuality make my child gay? Will I have to have uncomfortable discussions about sex and sexuality with my child? How will I do this? As a scientist, one thing I can help with is access to research on homosexuality, on how children develop their sexual identity, and on the best statistics on the effects of bullying and the effects of anti-bullying initiatives on the health and well-being of all of our children. My colleague, Dr. Elizabeth Saywek, is an expert in adolescent sexual development, and she's willing to come to a public event to answer questions if we organize it and invite her. She tells me that 2/3 of the children in BC who report homophobic bullying do not consider themselves to be homosexuals. So this is also about protecting straight kids. I'm learning quickly that this policy is long overdue. I'm learning that the expression "that's so gay" is pervasive in Burnaby student culture, even in grade 1. I'm learning that many children are harassed, bullied, and teased on a daily basis on the assumption or the knowledge of their sexual orientation. I'm learning that a shocking number of these children take their own lives. I'm also learning that many of the children who have taken their own lives were straight kids who were singled out, labeled, and bullied to their deaths. I've also been shocked to learn that Aaron Webster's killers came from Burnaby. 10 years ago, 4 young men got into a car and drove to Stanley Park. Although they later said they were looking for a fight, it is clear they were looking for a gay man to assault. They drove to Stanley Park, they found a gay man, and they beat him to death with baseball bats. These young men were a product of Burnaby schools, and 2 were under 18 at the time. Why was a policy not put in place then? The rights of gays, lesbians, bisexual, and transgendered people to be protected from discrimination and bullying is protected under the Canadian Charter of Rights and Freedoms, which was enacted about 30 years ago. 4 years ago, a judge found that school boards are required to pass policies of this type. Today, the United Nations is working towards a declaration in support of the rights of lesbian, gay, bisexual, and transgender people around the world. Burnaby has an ugly history. There is a clear need for this type of protection for LGBTQ youth. And I'm proud that Burnaby School Board has passed this policy, although I still really don't understand what's taken so long. We're in a time of changing attitudes, and that can be uncomfortable and difficult. Let me tell you another story. When my grandmother was a child, she wrote with her left hand. That wasn't acceptable in England at the time, so they tied her hand behind her back and forced her to write with her right hand. Today, my daughter is also left-handed, but as far as I know, it's never been an issue. It's my sincere hope that that is how we will look back on diversity and sexual orientation in another 100 years. It's a good example because most of us are born right-handed. Some of us are able to write with either hand, and some of us are strongly left-handed and cannot write with our right hands at all. Similarly with sexual orientation, there are many people who feel some attraction for both men and women. Most of us are heterosexual in our identity and in our practice. A minority of us are homosexual. And so long as we recognize and respect this diversity, it doesn't have to be an issue. Some have asked why this could not be addressed under current policies about bullying. In an ideal world, it could be. But the very controversy about the policy and the parents' directives that are circulating make it clear that teachers need clear permission to say the very basic things that need to be said. Most people are heterosexual, but some people are not. Most families are heterosexual, but some students come from lesbian or gay parents. Most people grow up to be heterosexual, but some people grow up to be homosexual. Homosexual people have traditionally been stigmatized and persecuted. In Canada, we do not tolerate this persecution, name-calling, or bullying. In our schools, we do not tolerate name-calling and bullying. Homosexual people are as worthy of respect as heterosexual people. Homosexual people are as capable of moral and respectful behavior as heterosexual people. Regardless of sexual orientation, it is important that relationships between people are respectful and consensual. I would also like to speak to all of the parents who are here. While it might look like we're on opposite sides or different sides, I want to recognize that we're all here because we have a deep commitment to doing the right thing for our children. And I would like to say that it's possible to be a committed person of faith and to raise your children to have values that are not taught in the classroom. This can be uncomfortable and difficult. As parents, we need to talk more among one another about the challenges of living in a country that respects and tolerates diversity, but that protects the human rights of everyone. I myself am a Quaker by religion, and my faith leads me to take a strong position of nonviolence. The Bible says, "Thou shalt not kill." Jesus offered the most profound example of nonviolence in giving his life without fighting, and in chastising Peter for using violence in his defense. Nonetheless, I recognize that my daughter shares the classroom with children who do not share this view, and who may come from military families. I also know that she will be taught that warfare is an acceptable way for countries to resolve conflicts. As a Canadian, I need to be able to speak my truth while allowing others to have their own, sometimes different beliefs. And this is a challenge I share with many other families, be they Sikh, Muslim, vegetarians, and even atheists. In mid-May, I gathered with my faith community. I would like to close by reading a minute from that gathering in support of the policy. Western Half-Yearly Meeting of the Religious Society of Friends, known as Quakers, encourages and supports the Burnaby Board of Education in its work of developing policy that makes schools inclusive and safe for all students. In particular, we strongly support the Burnaby Board's current efforts to develop and implement Policy 5.45, the goal of which is, in the board's words, to ensure that all members of the school community learn to work together in an atmosphere of respect and safety, free from homophobia, transphobia, anti-gay harassment, and/or exclusion, regardless of their sexual orientation or gender identity. We hold you in the light as you work towards honoring and protecting the civil rights of all students. These are difficult conversations that we are having, but they're the building blocks of community. I'm very pleased to have been invited, and I look forward to continuing the dialogue. Thank you.